Good morning, Reach Church. What's going on? Good response. Good response. You guys doing good? It's good to see all of you. I love all of you. I love this church. And I'm just super excited to be here today and super honored to be here. And before I get started, I just want to first off say thank you to Pastor Chad for this opportunity. And not only just for this opportunity, but I wanted to say thank you for the times when you've showed up at the hospital at 3 a.m., and the times when you've texted us when stuff hasn't been good in our life, the time that you've paid for dinner for us to go out and paid for a babysitter for us to go out, and all the times that you've loved us and encouraged us, and thank you for being there, and thank you for doing what you do. And if we could we just all say thank you? Yeah. Thank you. We love you. And Pastor Sarah's not here today. If you haven't been here for a while, or you're new, or you kind of know what's going on, Pastor Sarah was, while they were on vacation, was in an accident on a moped, and she honestly it was pretty bad. Her foot was really bad, and so they last week saw a burn specialist, and the burn specialist was happy with the progress, and so hopefully next week Pastor Sarah is going to be back with us. But Pastor Chad just wanted me to let you know that he appreciates your prayers, appreciates your support, and appreciates your encouragement. And if you just keep praying and supporting and encouraging, it would mean a lot. So we're just believing that God's going to heal and God's going to do what he does, and that Pastor Sarah will be back with us next week. Right now we're in a series called Demonstrate, and this shirt right here, Demonstrate. We've got these shirts over here today. Small shameless plug for the shirts. But we're in this series, Demonstrate. And the reason this series is important is because this isn't just another series. This is the vision word that God gave Pastor Chad to start off this year. And so this is the vision that we're gathering around as a community, collectively, to live out individually in our lives so that our city can see God and experience God in a new way. And so last week, Pastor Chad kicked us off, and if we could put up the Colossians or the 1 Corinthians verse up there, this is the verse we're building around. It says, "The sermons I preached were not delivered with the kind of persuasive elegance some have come to expect, but they were effective because I relied on God's Spirit to demonstrate God's power." And here's the idea, is that we live in a world right now that has a ton of information, and we can access all kinds of information. But what we believe we need is we need more demonstration from God and more experiences with God that will change our lives. Last week, Pastor Chad kicked it off, and my favorite part of the entire sermon, not because I got a steak sample or because I got a donut sample, because Chad Ketcher avoided me and ignored me. He also ignored Keely Gobo, who's pregnant, which I don't think was I'm just kidding. But my favorite part of it was to taste and see. That God is inviting us in this series to taste and see, to experience his goodness, to experience his love individually in our lives, to experience all that he has for us. And I want to build off of this today, and I want to go into the next dimension of this, I believe. And not only that we would taste and see and experience God's goodness, but that when we tasted and when we saw and when God showed us his goodness, then it wouldn't just stop with us, but it would go through us, and other people in our community would see and taste and experience the goodness of God. So today I want to talk around this idea, and I want to kind of title it, if you're taking notes, I think you should take notes, but I want to kind of title it this, the blueprint of demonstration. The blueprint of demonstration. So let's go ahead. We're going to be in Luke 17, verses 11 through 19. Verses 11 through 19. And it says, "Now it happened as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. Then as he entered a certain village, there met him 10 men who were lepers who stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' So when he saw them, he said to them, 'Go, show yourselves.'" That word show is the same word for demonstrate in the Bible. "Go, show yourselves to the priest.' And so it was that as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, returned and with a loud voice glorified God. And he fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. So Jesus answered and said, 'Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Were not any of them found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner?' And he said to him, 'Arise, go your way, for your faith has made you well.'" Another translation says at the beginning that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, passing in between these cities, and he was met by these lepers. I want to talk today about the blueprint of demonstration. Can we just pray real quick? Father, thank you for these moments that we get to experience together, God. God, I pray that today we would taste and see and we would experience your goodness. I pray that you would give us practical handles. I pray that you would encounter us spiritually. I pray that we would get a full portion of who you are today so that we can reach people in our city. It's in Jesus' name I pray, amen. The blueprint of demonstration. So I kind of got this idea one night. I had the framework for this message written out, and I was kind of just trying to think of how I wanted to tie it all together, because when I write sermons, I like to think like I'm an architect, and I like to design a sermon and build a sermon like an architect. So kind of weird, but it fit in perfect because I was like the blueprint of demonstration. And Pastor Chad texted the staff group the other night, the staff and the spouses, and he sent a picture of this playhouse, and Ava was in the playhouse having fun. And when I saw it, God just kind of hit me with the idea, the blueprint of demonstration. I was like, okay, I'm going to tell that story. So one night, it was after Meet the Pastors, and we had been at Meet the Pastors on a Sunday night, and there was a football game on, a Sunday night football game. And so Pastor Chad invited us over to his house, and we were going to watch the football game. Well, we got there, and there was, I think there was like a box that had that you could tell was a playhouse. And of course, I'm pretty sure it was Chad Ketcher, because why wouldn't it be Chad Ketcher? That was like, what is this? And Pastor Chad was like, well, that's a playhouse for Ava, and we're building it tomorrow. And so he already had a plan in place. They were going to get the thing built. But of course, Chad Ketcher, being Chad Ketcher, was like, it will only take a minute. And so Ketcher enlists me and Michael and everybody there, basically. Let's be honest, it was everybody there that was enlisted by Ketcher, because when Ketcher does something, he just drags everybody else along. And so we get going and we start building this thing. And how many of you know, guys, when we build stuff, we like to think we know what we're doing. So we get like 10, 15 minutes in it, and then we actually get the instructions to read the instructions and actually build it right. And so we're building it, and just a minute turns into like an hour, and an hour turns into the sun setting and it being dark. And then at that point, I was like, hey guys, it's the fourth quarter of the game. I'm gonna go watch the game because it's dark, and I'm gonna watch the game. So I was out at that point, I'm gonna be honest, but the rest of the staff, they built this playhouse. And what was funny is at the end, we were all looking for this one little bolt. And how many of you know in these things, they give you these smallest nuts and bolts in the world to build these things with. And we're all trying to search for this thing, and we're looking on the blueprint, and we're like, D5, where's D5? What's it look like? How do we find it? And what I was thinking about when I think of that story is I was thinking about this idea that we needed the blueprint to show us how to get to the final product. And what I believe is that we as Christians need God as a blueprint to show us who he is so that we can then show him to the world. And I believe people in the world need us to be their blueprint to show them Jesus. And so I want to talk about this idea, and I want to look in this story, and I want to discover how Jesus lived his life, because I believe when we dig into the life of Jesus, we see some things that Jesus did. Jesus lived a life of ministry, of effectiveness, and we can look at his life, and we can see certain things when we read deeper into the text. It says in here that he was on his way to Jerusalem. Now, that just seems like another phrase, but Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. And this would be Jesus' last trek to Jerusalem. This would be Jesus on his way to what we'll celebrate next week. Jesus was on his way to the greatest plan and the greatest mission and the greatest goal and the greatest thing that he would ever, hello, Holy Spirit, accomplish in his life. As he's on his way there, he notices these people. And this is where I want to stop, and I want to look at this part of Jesus. The first principle I want to see in the life of Jesus is that Jesus didn't get lost on the way to the big thing. Jesus didn't get lost on the way to the big thing. If we're going to demonstrate God to the people in our cities, if we're going to show people God, then we have to value small moments, and we have to value people. Jesus was on his way to the greatest place he would ever go, yet on the way to the greatest place he would ever go, he didn't forget the people. On the way to your dream car, on the way to your dream house, on the way to your dream job, on the way to your dream bank account, whatever it is, on the way to all of those things, that's great, that's good, I'm not against it, but let's not miss out on people. We live in a society right now that says hustle, hustle, hustle. Go get it, go do it. We're trying to catch up with the Joneses. Not only now do we have the Joneses on our block, but we have 8 billion Joneses on social media. And so we're trying so hard to accumulate and become and do, and we're comparing and we're losing contentment. And in the process, we're rushing around and we don't have any margin in our life to see people where they are. Jesus had vision for people. Are you able in your life, do you have enough margin built into your life where you're able to see people where they are? Do you ever have enough time in your life, in your calendar, to see people and to see their hurt and their desperation? Don't get lost in the big picture. Remember that the purpose is always people. The purpose is always people. Your dreams, your goals, they're great, but they're not going to make it to heaven. They might reach people in the process. Your business might reach people. I'm not saying don't do it with excellence, don't do it great, but I'm saying when you begin to forget people, it's wrong. It makes me remember this movie last year. I was a big advocate for it last year in kids' church leadership talks. If you're in any of those, you know what I'm going to say, but The Greatest Showman. And I know some of you don't like The Greatest Showman because you hate musicals. I hate musicals too, but I liked it. And my favorite part about The Greatest Showman is that this guy, Barnum, he has an incredible dream. He has an amazing dream. He has a dream that I believe God gave him to uniquely show people that they were valuable and show people that they had a purpose and they had a plan. But on the way to this, the dream becomes bigger than the people. And he begins to forget his wife. He begins to forget his kids. He begins to forget the people that have made the circus what it is. He locks them out of rooms to hang out with the elite. And I wonder how many times we do this in our world. We hang out with the elite business people and lock out everybody else. We hang out with the elite Christians and lock out everybody else. And we forget that it's all about people. The movie ends with him saying, from now on, my eyes won't get blinded by the lights, from now on. And I want this to be a declaration for our church today that from this day forward, from now on, no matter how big our dreams are, no matter how big our goals are, from this day forward, we will intentionally pursue people and see people, and people will be the reason we do everything that we do. From now on. Jesus then, this kind of ties into this principle, but Jesus then, it says, he was on his way to Jerusalem, and it talks about how he was passing in between. As I was reading this, I was reading a commentary, and I was looking into the life of Jesus, and what you discover is this wasn't necessarily the easiest route for Jesus to get to Jerusalem. And a matter of fact, Jesus was intentionally walking through the middle of tension. He was walking between two cities that had racial tension, that had societal tension, and that had religious tension. And this is a principle I want to see all the time. I see all the time in Jesus' life, and I want to get it inside of us. Jesus did not live by default. He lived by design. Jesus never lived by default. Default would have said, take the road of least resistance. Default would have said, take the easiest path. Default would have said, take the most comfortable path. Default would have said, I've got to get to Jerusalem. I don't have time for these lepers. Default would have said, somebody else will do it. Default would have just been focused on its life and its comfortable, and it would have just fell into the rhythm that the world gave it. But Jesus didn't do that. Jesus lived by design, and it's something that God's been showing me this year in my life, that I've got to live more by design. And as I was thinking about this idea that design happens most with our schedules. And I was saying just a second ago the idea about margin. Design happens most within our schedules. So this is what I wanted to say. I want to notice three things that I see in the life of Jesus. Jesus, how he lived by design is, one, Jesus had a big vision. Jesus' vision, the reason he was able on the way to Jerusalem to see people is because Jesus had a big vision that he was here to save the lost. Jesus, yeah, he wanted to go to the cross, but Jesus was here because the Spirit of God was on him. It had anointed him to heal the sick. It had anointed him to heal the blind. It had anointed him to preach the good news. And so he had a big vision. And I want to say, no matter what you do, we need a big vision of what God has for us if we're going to show the world Jesus. If people are going to experience Jesus for our life, our overlying vision, our overlying mission, it has to be what Jesus's was. We can work in a business just like I do, but the overlying mission has to be that we're anointed, the Spirit of God is on us, and he's going to use us to show the world him. But not only that, Jesus had a big vision, but how many of you know a big vision without any steps to fulfill the vision is pointless? Jesus didn't just have a vision, Jesus had structure. If you want to have a vision, you also have to have structure. Jesus, if you look at the rhythm of his life, had structure. One thing in particular, Jesus went up to the mountain almost every day to pray. Every day he got alone with God in some form or fashion. Every day he made a moment with God. Every day he got alone with God. What's your structure? This year, I feel like God gave me a vision this year to live a healthier life. Not just physically, sure that's in there, but spiritually, emotionally, to live a healthier life, healthier with my relationships, healthier with my wife, healthier with how I work at my job, just a healthier life. And I didn't just stop at that vision, but he gave me steps, and he gave me 2 steps for each. He gave me steps relationally with my wife. If you look at my phone right now, she doesn't even know this, but there's notes in my phone that every day I write down something I find out about her that she loves. There's notes in my phone every day that I'm just praying over her and thinking about her. Those are 2 structural steps in there. In my walk with Jesus, I'm reading through the Bible in a year. And I'm not religiously reading through it. No, I'm reading through it because I want to get healthy. I'm journaling every day. I'm writing down what's happening in my life. There's structure to it. If you want to live by design so people can experience Jesus and you have enough margin for that, you have to live by design. You have to structure out your days. You have to get with God so that you can then show Him. You have to taste and see so that people can taste and see Him through you. He lived by structure. But then Jesus, and this is something interesting about Jesus. Jesus was always adapting and adjusting. Jesus didn't heal 2 people alike. A matter of fact, we read a story just now about Jesus healing 10 lepers. He tells them to go and show themselves. He makes them in faith step out for healing. But earlier, he'd heal a leper and he would touch him. Jesus, he never did things the same way. He adapted. In our lives, if we want to live by design and not by default, we have to track what we're doing. You have to look at your life. At the end of every month, I'm sitting down, I'm going, where can I adjust this? I was journaling in the afternoon, and I've been failing at that. I'm going to move it to the morning when I have more time. We have to always be adjusting and adapting and changing the plan because God's doing a new thing, and we've got to be open to that and listening to that and living by design. We have to adjust. We can't live today like we did when we were 10. We've got to adjust and adapt. My work now starts at 9. My work used to start at 8:30. I've got to change and adapt so that I can be more healthy, and in the process, I can have a life setup of design so that I'm at work 10 minutes early so I have enough time to intentionally see a coworker that needs some help and I can talk into their life. Some of you are rushing all around in your crazy, hectic schedule, and you're going from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and you get into work and you sit at your computer and you don't have any time to talk to anybody, and you finish late and you rush home, and then you eat dinner, and then you've got to pick something else out. You have no intentional time with your spouses. You've got to live by design so that you have space in your schedule to show people Jesus. Jesus lived by design, not by default. And then the third principle, let me read my scripture here because I got excited about that one, if I'm being honest with you. My third principle here is that Jesus lived by design, not by default. Get a vision. And my last one is right here. Thirdly, Jesus did not come for the healthy. He came for the sick. So simple, but you can miss it. Jesus didn't come for the healthy. He came for the sick. When you look at Jesus' life, he was always messing with the sick. I want to let you know something. I want to be real honest with you. I want to be real upfront about our vision as a church. I want you to really get something, and I want you to count the cost early on in this series. I want you to understand, if you're going to get this vision in your heart and you're going to begin to live out this vision, it's going to lead you into some people's messes. It's going to lead you into people's problems. It's going to lead you to people that are desperate. It's going to lead you to people that's hurting. It's not going to lead you to more healthy people. It's going to lead you to more sick people. And guess what? Some people that are around you, they might be like, why are you spending time with them? Why are you doing things with them? It's because you are intentionally pursuing people. Jesus intentionally pursued sick people. It might get messy, but we're not here for the healthy. We're here for the sick. The healthy don't need a demonstration. I mean, we do, but they don't need it as bad as the sick. The healthy don't need it. The sick need it. It's going to lead you into some messy situations. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about, this is kind of a funny illustration, but I was thinking about, has anybody ever heard of Allsips? Anybody? It's kind of in New Mexico. It's in Texas, not really in Oklahoma. Allsips is this convenience store, and they make fried burritos that you can get for like 50 cents, and they're awesome. But when you go into Allsips, you go back into your community, and people know you've been in Allsips because of the way it smells. And you smell a little different. And it's a funny illustration, but I want to let you know that, honestly, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone, and you're going to have to get into some sneaky, messy situations with people. You're going to have to get into that addiction with that person. You're going to have to pray. I'm going to be bold enough to say that somebody is going to have to open up their house for somebody. There's going to be one of you or somebody out there that this vision is so real that you're going to have to open up your house to somebody. And before they ever are open to the spiritual needs, you're going to have to meet some physical ones. You're going to have to get into their mess. You're going to have to show them that you're consistent, that you love them, and that you're there for them. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But we count the cost early on, and we say, Jesus, come hell or high water, I'm here for the people that you've called me to. We're here for the sick, not the healthy. Those are the principles I wanted to kind of talk about. But I wanted to finish up today, and I wanted to talk about the point of demonstration. See, if we're going to live out a life of demonstration, I don't want us to miss the point. And as Christians, we can miss the point more than people that aren't Christians. We can miss the point as we go through years of salvation. I wanted to put the last part of this story up, if you guys don't mind, the last part or the scripture on the screen. Please. When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. And as they went, they were cleansed. And as they went, they were... I don't know if you've ever read the Bible, but as you read the Bible, you'll see Jesus perform miracles. And the miracles that are in the text, they're so nonchalantly in there. And as they went, they were cleansed. Like, I'm thinking if I'm the person writing this, I'm like all caps and like I'm hyping this. Jesus healed 10 lepers. And I don't know if you know, this would be the most powerful form of demonstration that Jesus would ever do, to heal 10 lepers that were socially outcast. This disease didn't just hurt them physically, it numbed them, it isolated them, and in their society, it called them cursed by God. They weren't even allowed to go to a temple. They weren't even allowed to get help from God. They weren't even allowed, they were disconnected. And as they went, they were cleansed. This is such a big deal. They're getting connected with society. They're getting connected with community. This miracle is such a big deal. But can I be honest? The reason I think it's so nonchalantly in there is because look where the emphasis in the story is. It's not on the miracle. The emphasis on the story is then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And it goes on. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. And look where Jesus puts all the emphasis. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" See, 9 experienced a characteristic of Jesus, but 1 encountered the person of Jesus. 9 experienced a miracle. 1 experienced salvation. 1 encountered the person of God. Where is the emphasis and demonstration? It is clearly not on God's works that he'll do through us. It is clearly on us being at the feet of Jesus. This word demonstration, when you look at it in the Greek, the prefix is the word for abide. What does it mean? What's the emphasis on the word? When you abide in the presence of God, God will do incredible things through your life. It's not about going and doing and being and all. Presence of God, you abide and you're at the feet of Jesus and you encounter and experience and taste and see his goodness day in and day out. The point of demonstration is not that God would do miraculous healings. He'll do miraculous healings. The point is not that God will even free people. He'll free people. The point is that he's so good that he invites you to just sit at his feet and thank him for his goodness and love him for all that he is. The point of demonstration is Jesus. And it will always only be Jesus.